Welcome into episode 2 of the Hog Beat Half Hour, and we're extremely fortunate and honored to have J.D. PicKell on from the Hard Count, and of course on the On3 network. And J.D., you're actually the first ever guest as we revamp. I guess this is not the first time that HawgBeat's ever done a podcast, but we're revamping it and getting it back after a little bit hiatus. So you are the first guest. You get to do the honors of breaking that. So congratulations.
Let's go, baby. Maiden voyage, huh? Here we go.
Last week was we did the maiden voyage, but that was just an intro, just to kind of talk about what we're going to do, talk about what we've got going on at On3. Which, speaking of, I'll get your take on this because I came from the rival side. I haven't talked to a lot of the ones that were already on the, other than maybe a little bit at SEC Media Days. How has that gone? Adding the rivals brand, having the recruiting side there on top of what you guys have been doing at On3.
Dude, it has been so cool. Like, I'm sure you probably could attest to this, but the message board community in itself is, one, just a wild place, two, so intense and so passionate. And for me, getting into the sports media industry in a full-time capacity in the course of the last few years, that's been something that I'm still like getting the hang of and still learning and still trying to indoctrinate myself into. And so to add the just behemoth that Rivals is, especially on that side of things, has been unbelievable for someone like myself to just like dive headfirst into all of it. It's like, I don't know how you touch every site, but I'm going to do my very best to do that, especially to be with y'all at HawgBeat. So it's a blast, man. It's truly a super team of sorts that I'm glad to have a part of. Glad my key card works every day coming in here.
Yeah, that's all you can ask for, right? Well, we'll get right into the conversation, of course, talking a lot of all Razorbacks today. But before we do, let's tell you about our friends at Rhoback. There is only one way to describe Rhoback. They're the best fit, best fill. For those who are not familiar with Rhoback, they are completely changing the game with their incredibly comfortable activewear. Rhoback has released so many items within their new licensed game day collection, from everyday shorts or their Delta performance pants. Use code HAW20 on HawgBeat.com for a generous 20% off for all new customers. And then that is spelled RHOBACK.com. 20% off all performance polos, shorts, and more with code HAW20. All right, so talking about Sam Pittman, this is going into year 6, came in during the COVID year. Obviously, that was extremely tough for everybody, especially new coaches, even more so new coaches that were taking over what he did from Chad Morris, and had a respectable season. I think that most people got a mulligan that year, at least sure. Arkansas fans probably gave that to him. But then 9 wins in 2021. Dropped to 7 in 2022. 2023 made a really bad hire with Dan Enos, which that was a big reason why they were set back. Then 4 wins that year. Then you win a bowl game against Texas Tech in the Liberty Bowl for 7 wins last year. But nonetheless, I'm sure you have realized that this is a pretty restless fan base for the most part. They have got to do some things this year in order for Sam Pittman to keep his job. Obviously, there's it's a tough schedule all the way across the board any way that you slice it, but especially those first 4 games, going to have a very hungry Arkansas State team. Then you go to Ole Miss, go to Memphis before you host Notre Dame. So when you just think about Sam Pittman as a whole, what is your take on just how everything has gone at this point?
There's a lot there, right? There's a lot of different pieces of it. I just want to start with this. In terms of someone who doesn't have a dog in the fight and who just like enjoys college football, I think Sam Pittman is so, and this isn't really answering your question, but I just think Sam Pittman is so good for college football. So to see them have the year they had last year and to have some moments last year, the Tennessee win and things like that, to kind of almost like stabilize morale of sorts. Not that it necessarily took it through the roof, but kind of stabilize things to where he's your head coach again this year. That just as a Sam Pittman fan club card holder really encouraged me. I think when you look at just the hand that Arkansas has with that schedule that you mentioned, I feel this way a little bit about Florida. I feel this way a little bit about Oklahoma. I know people are talking about results and talking about, wanting to make a change at the top to get different results. I'm like, let's just see how this year goes. And if you get to a spot where you think the arrow just maybe could be pointing up, maybe wait for another year and see what your draw is with a different schedule in the conference. Because, not to make it about Florida or about Oklahoma, there is a 0% chance that you have the schedule you have right now, next year when they have the whatever the schedule looks like a season ago and however they get it done. Like I would love some patience with Sam Pittman, which I know this is not a patient group and they don't need to be with what Arkansas is. But I'm actually impressed that they were able to salvage what last year was with how bad the vibes were coming into the season, if that makes sense. Because we're all talking about Sam Pittman, he's going to get fired, he's the next guy to go. And then for them to not just like go win some of those big games, but like very clearly play for Sam Pittman, I think that spoke volumes to his leadership and to what he's capable of at Arkansas.
One of the side conversations, I say side because I see it come up here and there, especially this time of year during the offseason. There's a whole lot of talk, especially with being in the SEC. Then you add Texas and Oklahoma last year, how tough it is to compare everybody, and this is what we talk about every single day, just the depth of this conference. But do you think that sometimes the expectations are put too high? Obviously, as a fan base, you expect championships. You're out there to play hard, to ultimately win championships. But do you think sometimes, and this isn't necessarily exclusive to Arkansas, but I mean, you pointed maybe in Nebraska post 20th century, this past that last national champ. I'm just pointing them out because it won, and I'm not comparing Nebraska and Arkansas. I'm just saying 21st century, Nebraska hasn't been what they previously have been in past years. Then you think about Arkansas and what they did in the 60s and 70s. Do you think maybe as far as just playing in this conference, sometimes expectations are just set too high with what you're having to recruit against, what you're having to play against?
The answer is yes, but also I don't think that you need to lower expectations. Like I think it's almost a good thing that everyone cares so much. Like if the attitude at Arkansas was win 8 games, win 9 games, we're okay with that. Well, that in itself is a larger problem, so that the pressure is the privilege, as I'm sure people in this fan base could attest to, that comes with that logo. Like I could give an example. We might have talked about this at Media Days together, Kyle. I went on vacation to Arkansas this past early summer, late spring. Like, long story short, we had a baby. My sister had a baby, lived in Texas, us in Nashville, them in Texas, midpoint to drive because no one wants to get on a flight with a less than 6 months old baby. We both drove, met in Arkansas with our family. Great time, great experience. Went fly fishing there. And our guide was talking about Arkansas and how they need to have somebody that's running the show, basketball and football, that's going to compete for national championships. And it kind of took me back a little bit because I was, wait, hang on, like Alabama competes for national championships, LSU does, Florida does, but for him to say that out loud, I was like, it almost opened my eyes to, oh no, like this is a fan base that is not just okay with winning, like they want to go win a national championship. And so regardless of how it looks to the outside, doesn't matter as long as that's your focus inside and that's what you're, going to be satisfied by. Like that is what I think will keep them from settling for mediocrity. So to answer your question directly, expectations, are they too high? For sure. But I think that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, agree. No, I think you took it right out of my mouth. That's the thing is, yes, maybe sometimes from a realistic, that's what I've usually always said. From a realistic standpoint, you have to look at the recruiting. You have to look, especially in the NIL age. And there's been plenty of reports about how Arkansas is behind in that regard, but that's a whole other conversation. But no, you're exactly right. I would much rather have a fan, as I said, the fan base is certainly restless right now. And I think there's plenty of reasons for that. But like you said, I mean, the expectation doesn't ever need to change. I think that you nailed it right on the head. So looking at this offense, that's probably where most people feel the best, because of who is leading it. We as Arkansas fans know as well as anybody what Bobby Petrino can do. Now, he might not have the toys in the toy chest that he had when he was the head coach here, but for the most part, got some pretty good talent. And look at Tayen Green coming back. Now, there's, depending on who you ask, there's some that he's maybe a top 4, top 5 quarterback in the SEC. Some have him. I mean, I don't know that I see this so much anymore, but during parts of the offseason, maybe before summer, I saw more of that, maybe a 9, 10 to 12 range where some would rank him as a quarterback in the SEC. But you have a quarterback coming back in the second year under Bobby Petrino. You look at the past, that has worked out pretty well. They really like what they have in transfer Mike Washington back there at running back at New Mexico. And it's easy for somebody like Mike Washington to fall through the cracks from New York, start off at Buffalo, then you're at New Mexico State. So a little bit of a hidden gem there. Still some questions at wide receiver, but it seems like they'll have some depth. They really like what they have, particularly from center, left guard, and left tackle. So you like what you're hearing from Bobby Petrino on this, and again, it's year 2 with a second-year quarterback, so it's hard to trade that. What do you take from this offense so far from just what you've heard?
I think what you just mentioned with Tayen Green and Bobby Petrino in year 2, we look across the SEC, and this talking point's been beat to death, but hey, it's August. Let's do it one more time here. Let's show no mercy to that horse that's already dead on the ground. A lot of new quarterbacks, right? Like Georgia, they've got a great roster. Do we know Gunnar Stockton's going to be awesome? Like Arch Manning, I've said many times, I think he'll be great. I think he's going to be one of the better quarterbacks in the conference. No, I've been wrong before, Kyle. I hate to admit it. I have been wrong before. It would not be the first time if I missed on Arch Manning. Other conversations with Alabama, Ty Simpson's going to be the guy there. We don't know what he's going to be. So I say all that to get to the, this point. If you have a quarterback that's back for a second full season, like full being the key word there, which excludes a Marcel Reed, excludes a DJ Lagway, I think you kind of start from a bit of an advantage there. Like if you're telling me I get the guy back who touched the football every single offensive snap from a season ago, and he's going to be better for that. I mean, I trust that guy in the fourth quarter in a tie game or down a touchdown with a drive to go tie it up. Like I think the composure this offense now has with that continuity just can't be quantified. And honestly, I'm probably doing a poor job of this as well. I don't know that it's getting enough attention because I think LSU is an easy one to speak to because of what they've done via the portal. But like if Arkansas and Tayen Green take the next step, we saw what they can be when Tennessee came to Fayetteville and got a quick loss with just how that team played for Sam Pittman. So there's a lot of factors there. But the last thing I'll say is I think that this team, from someone like myself who's not nearly as dialed in as you are being boots on the ground there, it feels very much like it is reflective of how Sam Pittman does things. Like it's going to be, in a lot of ways, I don't want to say do more with less because that sounds so like, backhanded, but it is a lot of guy like Tayen Green, a great example, G5 guy. You mentioned the running back coming from Buffalo. Like there's a lot of pieces where it's like, hey, maybe I wasn't first pick at recess, but like I'm going to give my all for this coach, give my all for this place. And we're going to be better because we major in those quote unquote like other things that maybe aren't as predicated on talent and you lean more on culture.
I think what's got me the most excited about Tayen is when just listening to what strength and conditioning coach Ben Souter said about how he was hurt pretty much after he took that shot against Tennessee and obviously didn't play the second half against Ole Miss. Yeah. He had those lingering injuries. They defined it as a mild MCL sprain. Some were just going knee injury. Sam Pittman talked about it being more of a bone bruise, but nonetheless, something that's very painful. And the fact that in those last 7 games, he still completed 64% of his passes. Yeah, he had some games that weren't so great, but I think that's what's got me maybe drinking the Kool-Aid with him a little bit more, on top of the fact that he is, again, in that Petrino offense. That's probably what I look at the most, is that in this back half of the season, and in the Texas Tech game, look, it's still a win. He had an MVP performance, 340 yards. I know you're going to face much tougher teams than a depleted Texas Tech. You got to definitely acknowledge that. But in the big picture, just knowing that he wasn't 100% and still played pretty well in the big picture, that's probably what's got me most excited about it.
And they bring back a lot of production. 65% production on the offensive side. Even if the production from a year ago that's coming back doesn't get you as excited, I think the continuity there in itself, just what we said a second ago, there's no way to measure what that's going to be in another year together in 2025. So there's a lot to be excited about. I think it's the most uncertain college football has felt to me. I mean, as far back as I can remember, with the 12-team playoff is one part of it, but just the SEC in general, like the majority of teams that are picked to win the conference right now are breaking in a new starting quarterback, which is, I think, a dangerous game.
Then looking at the defensive side of the ball, that's where many have not only look at starting up front. You lose Landon Jackson, that was a high draft pick to the Buffalo Bills and did so many good things for you coming in from LSU. They like Justice Boone at defensive end. They like North Little Rock native Quincy Rhodes Jr. there at the other defensive end. There's some guys that they've been discussing. Linebacker, you think about Xavier Sorey, Steven Dix. You feel pretty good there. JD, I think the secondary is by far secondary and wide receiver were probably the two biggest questions expectations that I had coming into fall camp. I think that defensive back in particular, that whole secondary is really what I have the most questions for. There a lot of length back there, multiple, just about every guy is over 6 feet tall. They've talked about how they want to play more man coverage, or at least if they can, so that way they can utilize more blitz packages and things like that. But the facts are they were last in pass defense, last in the SEC, 111th in the country. So there's nowhere to go but up. And I'm hesitant to say it can't get any worse, because I think Arkansas fans have said that in fairly recent memory, particularly back to the Chad Morris days. Thankfully, we're out of those, and we've seen it get worse. So I'm hesitant to say that, but the facts are too that there is nowhere to go but up.
And I think to put another spin on that, just looking at the schedule in and of itself, I think whenever you have home field, especially against some of these quarterbacks that are going to be maybe first year guys, the wrong way to put it, but guys that are going to be in their first year at a specific school, like Kenny Minchie or CJ Carr, when they go into Fayetteville, they're going to have a defense with the home field out their back. Same deal with Marcel Reed for A&M. Same deal with Jackson Arnold at Auburn. Like, there's Bo Beulah if he ends up being the guy for you at Missouri the last game of the year. And so I don't want to make this conversation not about the defense, but I do think when you put them in a raucous environment, you would hope the offense can apply some pressure. A lot of those games that feel like they would be, I don't want to say gotta have it games, but games that could swing your season and kind of change momentum, much like the Tennessee game you felt like maybe was at that point in time when you got the win over them. I love the way that sets up. Raucous environment, opportunistic defense. I mean, I can't get this out of my head. I don't know how you feel about this, Kyle, but like, I know Auburn was pretty bad at taking care of the football a year ago, but like that defense went out and won them that game. You know, that defense was out there just, I mean, hair on fire, making. I know there's a lot of new pieces there still, but like I think those same personality traits from the top down, I'd like to think would carry over. So tell me if I'm wrong there, but that's kind of how I'm feeling about this whole thing.
That's what I would think too. And again, talking about the continuity, and I know maybe continuity with coordinators, coaches, whatever, that may not mean what it once did, just because rosters turn over so much more so than they used to, but it still does. And you know, this as a former college athlete, I mean, when you have your culture already set and you've got coach and your special teams coordinator's been there the whole entire time with Sam Pittman. So you think about it across the board, just with your coordinators alone, there's a lot of continuity there. You don't have to establish that culture again, as I said. So that's got to have something, you know, play into it in some way. But I think that's probably too, is you look at Travis, and Travis Williams will tell you that there's plenty of improvements that need to be made, but he is a very respected name in this industry. And also too, I mean, again, the fact that I think what he's done, particularly on the recruiting trail, has really proven a lot on that too. But like you said, you got to look at games and Auburn did. I'll admit they did help them out with some drop balls and things like that. But like you said, defense was a big part in that. So like the Tennessee game, like the Auburn, you would hope that even though you don't want to look backwards to last year, that's got to be some momentum, as you said, going into 25.
I mean, I think Travis Williams is awesome. Like, which is not really great analysis, but just it's very evident that locker room responds to him and his way of coaching and his way of communicating. And I think that's something that just in our industry, especially this time of year, is very easy to gloss over because you can't quantify it. You can't look at returning production. You can't look at scheme or watch it on tape. But like, if you'll play for your coordinator, and I don't mean play like you'll go out there and give your best, like you will legitimately go to war for that individual. Again, going back to non-quantifiables, I think that's one of those quantifiables where we look at the end of the year and it's like, well, Arkansas, they brought back less than 40% production. Like how'd they get that? Well, Arkansas a year ago, they weren't as good. How'd they get, like, I think look at Travis Williams and say, that dude knows what he's doing. Those guys play for him. And it may not be quite as simple as that, but I think it's kind of in that neighborhood of it might be as simple as that.
Yeah. Just looking at the schedule, this is a question that I've been asked a lot, is what one game really could define their season? And yeah, of course you got to win the first one. Alabama A&M, you feel like that they're pretty favored in that one. That one shouldn't be too incredibly hard, we hope at least. But you think about a very hungry Arkansas State team coming to Little Rock, and Sam Pittman said at media days that he has no interest in playing home and home series. He wants to play this game in Fayetteville for the foreseeable future. With Little Rock, I know Little Rock's a whole other conversation. That's been a debate for years, but that Arkansas State, you're going to have that team that's coming in very hungry. This is a game that people have wanted. Some people have wanted for generations. It's going to happen this year, maybe for the first and only time, very likely the only time. But then, to me, after that game, just assuming that they start 2-0, that Ole Miss is just so incredibly crucial, because not only starting 1-0 in the SEC, but starting 1-0 on the road. So best case scenario, they're able to steal that one. Then you go across the river the next week again to play Memphis. And that's when, once you finish that slate through the first quarter of the season, then you welcome the defending national runner-up Notre Dame.
How did they get that game in Memphis? Tell me that. That feels like Arkansas going to Memphis at G5. No knock on Memphis. I love FedEx as much as the next guy, but I did not have that on my bingo card when I was looking at the schedule for Arkansas for the first time.
That's another one that has been very hotly debated. Most, of course, I'm hesitant to say it was polarizing, because I think there were way more people that didn't like it than did. Yeah, great question.
Well, here's my answer to your question that you originally asked. I'm looking at that A&M game at home, and it has a feel to it to me of, after going on the road to Ole Miss in the SEC, going to Tennessee in the SEC, like your SEC opener being mid-October with a feisty A&M team. Like, to me, if you can win that game, that to me feels like, regardless of where Arkansas is in the wins-loss situation, like, let's just say you won both or lost both on the SEC side of things at that point in time, that to me is like a flag plant moment of, like, okay, midway through the year, give or take, like, this is kind of who we are. And if you win that game, I think that's one that would either stabilize momentum, it could propel momentum. But if you lose that one, you're staring down the barrel of the rest of your schedule, where you go play Auburn at home the next week, Mississippi State the next week, but then you finish with at LSU, at Texas, and then Missouri at home. I would much rather have something to point to internally to say, no, we're a good football team. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that was kind of the Tennessee and the Auburn game for them a year ago, is we can point to who we are based on what actually happened on the football field, and tell you we are a good football team, which is almost, in some ways, I think, almost as crucial for your locker room. And I know there was a lot with Tayen Green at the end of the year that didn't end up, finishing how folks wanted, but I think the internal confidence would be in a really exciting place if you can get a win like that against that team.
When you look at the SEC overall, everybody's talking about Georgia, Texas. I know some are throwing Alabama in there, the LSU, assuming maybe Nussmeier. If he stays
Nussmeier's
healthy.
a good one, though. I like that one.
That's one that I know that maybe being a little bit slept on as LSU in terms of being a legit SEC contender. But what about the Missouri? Missouri they're ranked like somewhere, I think, anywhere between 9 and 11, really depending on where you look. Obviously, it's a crucial year for Auburn under Hugh Freeze. It was this year 3 now. So again, we'd say it multiple times a day, just discussing the depth of this conference. But what is your overall look on it once you get past the Georgias, the Texases, and those teams that people are talking about at the top?
I mean, the same reason I'm excited about Arkansas with what we're talking about with Tayen Green and the continuity with Petrino is I am just, I know this is not popular being on this platform right now. I am guzzling the LSU Kool-Aid. Like, it's almost become a bit around the office with our video team how much I am in on LSU, and like, I'm just kind of leaning into it. I love Nussmeier year 2. I love the work they did in the portal. And I don't know if you would classify them as like a middle tier SEC team by any stretch of the imagination, but like, I think they're going to win the SEC. I think they win the national championship. Like, I'm that high on LSU right now. For the reasons we talked about at the top, with the question marks at quarterback, not just in the SEC, but really across college football, like with Ohio State and with Notre Dame and all that. So love LSU. I know we just talked about A&M. I like the way A&M's built. And I think that their schedule, it may not be, easy, such a funny word to throw out in the SEC. It's not an easy SEC schedule, but like, there's no Georgia, there's no Bama. I like A&M as well. So that's the reason why I think if Arkansas could beat them in Fayetteville, that would be a not turning of the tide, because that sounds a little bit like it's going south to begin with, but it could be a line in the sand. We're a good football team. We played them to a field goal a year ago. Like this is who we are. So A&M and LSU, I'm very high on.
I definitely want to ask you too, because I was actually asked this on a podcast. Here we're recording on a Tuesday. On Monday, I was asked on a podcast, what will happen if the SEC doesn't win a national championship this year after not winning it for 2 years? Yeah. We know Feinbaum's going to leave the country. He said that the other day. What do you think will happen? Obviously, social media is going to be just an absolute ruckus, but what do you think is going to happen if the SEC doesn't get one this year?
I think two things will happen. One, like you just said, the SEC bias crowd that loves to chant that on social media will take another victory lap, and they will have earned that at that point in time. Two, the SEC will once again lead all of college football in first-round draft picks. Like that's just, I mean, that's kind of how, like, that was my thing when we had this discussion a year ago, is everyone loved to say, well, you can't, the games have to matter. The SEC loves playing hypothetical games. And like, this is coming from someone who like grew up in California. I think In-N-Out Burger is the best burger in fast food. Nobody that's an SEC bias figure is saying those two things. That's first off. Second off, I'm like, haven't we always sort of played hypothetical games? Like, don't we have rankings every single week where we put Oregon at number 1 in the country without playing the majority of teams that they're ranked ahead of? Like, it's 136 teams now in college football at the FBS level. We're doing a hypothetical poll the majority of the time. So I don't think it's again, if the Big Ten wins another national championship, I don't think that would shock me at all. But I do think the conversation around how bad the SEC is sort of misplaced. Like, I think the SEC in general, if it's not LSU winning the national championship, I think it's Ohio State. Like, I think that they have one of the best rosters in college football, which isn't saying much. They have 2 of the best players in college football. Ryan Day is one of the best coaches in college football, and the SEC's got a bunch of new quarterbacks. Like, that's kind of, I think, just the landscape right now. So I don't think it would say a lot, but the SEC, to be long-winded here, is once again still the most talented conference in the country.
Well, as we wrap things up here, talk about what you got going on at the Hard Count, man. You got, I mean, as always, you got just content flowing, but doing a lot of breakdowns on teams right now as we count down to the season.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. One, if you're not yet subscribed to this channel, like, go ahead and do that right now. But two, yeah, I mean, just the season for everyone. We're just jumping into it, and week 1 around the corner, so we're fired up for that. But yeah, I mean, previews, predictions for all the big games coming up on the channel, and we'll get going to 3 shows a week, 3 full shows a week here in the not too distant future. But I'm fired up, man. I'm fired up for the season, as I know you are, and can't wait to jump full speed into the beauty that is the 2025 season.
So it's Tuesday, Thursday. What will the third day be?
We'll go Wednesday during the season, so we'll make sure we got the middle of the week taken care of. Monday, we'll have content. We can't give you a full show on Monday, but we'll have some stuff for you throughout the week, and we'll make sure we all get our fix, us included.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, so great stuff there at the Hard Count. You can go check out all of the podcasts that are available through On3. And also go check out Rivals, too, if you're on the recruiting side of things. All kinds of great content there coming out of. We had big news in Arkansas. One of the Arkansas commits for 2026, Tay Lockett. He is from California. He was the first commit to the 26 class. And as of Monday, is announced his transfer to Arkansas. So he'll be playing his senior year here. So we're excited about that.
Let's go, baby.
As always, man, I say as always, it's really the first time we've ever done a pod together. Hopefully not the last, man. Really enjoyed it. Having you here on the HawgBeat half hour presented by our friends at Bet Saracen. Looking forward to the season, man. Appreciate it.
Kyle, appreciate you, man. Thanks for having me on. We'll do this again soon.
Well, that'll be it for the HawgBeat half hour this week. We will catch you next week for episode 3.